This program is brought to you by DJ's Goalpost Sports Bar and Grill.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Pip and Dodds Packers podcast with the Packers historian and the Aaron Rodgers of this particular outreach, John Dodds, our good friend. I'm Tom Pippins. We're produced by the incomparable Jason Ruck at WSS, WisconsinSportsStream.com. Again, you find us at pippandodds.com as well as WSS. And our prime sponsor is a good friend, a dear man with a big heart, Don Matovich. From DJ's Goalpost in Menomonee Falls, it is simply the best sports bar restaurant, food-wise, sports memorabilia-wise, I've ever seen in my life. Appleton Ave, Menomonee Falls. Don can't be with us today, but we have a lot to talk about. Green and gold leading into a Sunday night tilt at New Orleans against Drew Brees and the one-up, one-down Saints, who took it on the chin, did not look very impressive. The Vegas Raiders beat them in Nevada. And John, as for the Pack, we know how very good, how historically good they've been in the first two games at 2-0. The dispatch of the Vikings in Minnesota, 43-34, and in the home opener, with no fans, of course, 42-21, the Lions go down, even though the Pack were in an early hole at 14-3.
Yeah, it was a historical performance. The Packers, after 2 weeks, are one of four NFL teams to ever score more than 80 points and have more than 1,000 yards on offense in the first 2 weeks. Now, granted, the caveat is they're against two teams that I don't think were at their strongest. Minnesota and Detroit both had cornerback issues, and the Packers using more of a wide zone offense this year, attacking the flanks. I don't think that the Detroit and Minnesota put up much of a fight in that regard.
I know this was a game that you were concerned about going in with the Lions, who blew the big lead to the Chicago Bears in their opener. But the Packers offense was just so dominant that 14-3, again, concerning the defense with struggles. Let's talk about this offense in the second year for Rodgers under Matt LaFleur. And there were 6 drops. Otherwise, Rodgers, as you're well aware, could have had the kind of numbers he put up in the opener against the Vikings. He's really been, for the most part, phenomenal.
The overall assessment of the offense, Matt LaFleur in his second year, they've installed it. And even though there was thank heavens for LaFleur, this is year 2. If they had had this COVID kind of a crazy off season, where they couldn't really install a new offense, they would be in big trouble. But they were able to do it last year, and they were able to more fine tune it this year. It seems like everyone's more comfortable with it. They're spreading the defenses out. Aaron Rodgers is buying into it. The motion on the jet sweeps is freezing the linebackers, both on running plays for pursuit and in drops. They're opening up the windows where if they're frozen for a split second, Aaron Rodgers has a bigger window to throw over the top of them. And so the gadgets and the sweeps are all being used. But probably the most impressive thing is Minnesota came in and they wanted to stop Aaron Jones. And they put multiple players in the box and they tried to do that. So Rodgers pivoted out to Davante Adams with 14 catches. So they used Adams. Last week, Detroit tried to stop Davante Adams. And so what did they do? They pivoted over and they used Aaron Jones. So very impressive that the diversity of the offense, they can go Jones or they can go Adams. And so that's probably the biggest thing that's hit me so far.
And Jones, I know you have the numbers from the Lions game. He was magnificent, both running the ball and catching it. The burst of 75 yards. I think that's where our friend, your good friend, who you've worked with, Wayne Larrabee, the Packers play-by-play announcer, said, like Secretariat, there he goes. You know,
right in the Belmont, right?
Yeah.
That's my favorite Wayne Larrabee call. The first time he did that, I think in Green Bay, was when Ryan Grant had a 4th and 1 against the Raiders, and he ran about 60 yards for a touchdown, and nobody was within 20 yards of him. But that's a unique call, and I know all the national people are kind of chuckling over Larrabee's call.
Well, we were here for Facebook and Twitter streaming live in our WSS studios with Jason Ruck. You said, hey, this is a heck of a game. You better get his agent to knock on the door and say, okay, Goody and company, it's time to talk turkey contract-wise.
Yeah, he set a record for most yardage overall for the Packers. He had 18 carries for 168, and then he had 4 receptions for 68 yards. 1 touchdown receiving, 2 touchdowns running. And the key to this is give the ball to him 20 times. When they gave him 20 times of action last year, our activity, he averaged 190 yards of total offense. That's what you need to do. He's a smaller guy, and that's to his advantage. I don't think the defense can find him. On that long touchdown run, he swerved behind the offensive line, which didn't fire out. They fired out and then went up, and then they kind of lose track of where this guy is. And he's so quick, and he's got such a vision, the ability to find the hole and cut, and he's so quick that they got into the secondary before they could react, and they all had bad angles. So don't overuse them. Keep them healthy for these 17, 20 weeks that you're hopefully going to play.
And I'm loving A.J. Dillon, the Boston College rookie, at that very small sample size. But as you pointed out, hey, look, you really don't need him right now because you've got Jamal Williams running hard and for big gainers. And, J.D., I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this offensive line. Not only their run blocking, but the way they're keeping number 12 clean, huh?
He's only had 1 sack this year so far. It's no turnovers and 1 sack. That's absolutely outstanding. The Packers are very much like New Orleans, which we'll get to a little bit later. But the Packers have a signature left tackle and a signature left guard. These guys are as good as anyone in the NFL. Jenkins, the guard, Bakhtiari, the left tackle. And Jenkins can play all 5 positions in the offensive line. But on the long run by Jones, he combo blocked. He hit once and he got in the secondary and screened another guy for Jones. Lindsley has been very, very good also this year, the center. He had a hand injury. So they were able to, what's probably the most impressive, and I think what you were alluding to, is the right side of the line has been, they let Bulaga go, which was an understandable thing. He was making too much money. He's getting to the end of his career. He was worth every penny, but he wasn't always durable. So they signed Turner last year. They had him at offensive right tackle. He hurt his knee in their last scrimmage. So they signed Ricky Wagner in the offseason. They plugged him in. And in the first game, they actually had Jenkins at right tackle. And then they had the left guard was, or the right guard was Lucas Patrick. I don't know why I had a brain lock on him, but Lucas Patrick was the right.
I never remember his name either, but he's a nice player.
He hurt his shoulder against Minnesota, so he left early, and they had to bring Runyon in.
Like John Runyon, huh, pal? They didn't really need him, but they did in the first game, not last Sunday against the Lions. But boy, he has potential too. Wouldn't it be great? You get those 2 young studs with Jenkins, as you talk about. If this kid can develop,
and
I think he will.
Patrick switched over to center when Lindsley hurt his hand. So it's been impressive how they've been able to juggle. But again, the caveat is the Vikings and the Lions are not in midseason form. They're in trouble, and you hope they right the ship because you don't want them to get a chance at Trevor Lawrence in the draft.
There's Trevor Lawrence again. The quarterback kind of clips it, everybody. Yeah, John absolutely loves him. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, Patrick is versatile, and that helps. You talk about the versatility of Jenkins, who's just a phenomenal player, seemingly a Pro Bowler for years to come if blessed with health. And then you did get some time for John Runyon. Again, the drops, they're concerning. MVS is up, he's down, but I like what we're seeing from 83 so far. And with Equinemius St. Brown on the injured list, more injury problems, the knee, as you're aware, JD, he's going to miss at least 3 games. So they're a little bit thin there. And it's nice to see him step up. He just teases you with his incredible speed, that long length of his, and certainly he has gifts if he can just focus on catching that football, because he and Sternberger had big gains negated by drops, just not focusing on the football.
Yeah, the one interesting thing is on Tanyan's touchdown catch, they actually double teamed Devontae Adams and they double teamed MVS. So that's why the tight end was open over the middle. And if the Packers had a big time tight end,
Yeah.
and they're crossing their fingers, DeGuara didn't play. They sat him out because of a shin injury. That's the guy could really step up. If they had a big time tight end, like teams like Oakland or Kansas City, some top line, top shelf person, it would be off the charts in terms of how you would guard this team. But you can't have everything in the salary cap era.
Yeah, you're right. And Tanyan is someone who has flashed. So we'll see with the aforementioned Sternberger. Yeah, injury wise, you have to be concerned. They're taking their time with Devontae Adams. We are coming to folk right now on a Thursday. Devontae Adams didn't practice along with Kenny Clark, but as you'll point out, the Saints have some issues too with a key receiver and a defensive lineman. How obviously it's a huge loss, but how would it impact Matt LaFleur's play calling if Adams can't go, or if he goes is more of a decoy, or is it say 70% or something with a hammy?
Well, one of the keys, and this happened last year, if you remember, Devontae Adams missed 3 or 4 games
with a toe, right?
In the regular season, right? He hurt it in the Philadelphia game on turf toe, and they looked pretty good, and they won they won all the games when he was gone. And the key to that would be, can you take Aaron Jones and spread him out? If you can spread him out and take some of the secondary over with him, I think you can get away with Lazard, with MVS. They're very high on Malik Taylor, and we'll see why that is. We haven't really seen a whole lot of them because there were no preseason games, but they can also play more tight ends too. They have a little bit more, and DeGuara coming out of the backfield. They have other weapons that they could still kind of attack the flanks from the tight end out to the numbers. If you can attack the flanks, Minnesota and the wide zone, Minnesota and the Lions had no way to deal with it.
John, you have to be concerned about the defense and the ability or inability to stop the run. Because they've scored 85 points, it hasn't been that big an issue, but you still have to, you said to yourself, okay, let's keep our fingers crossed, especially going into New Orleans with a Saints team. And Drew Brees has not looked impressive in the first couple of games. I think it was the first time since the 2019 regular season or even before that this offense failed to generate X amount of yards. So they're not playing like the Saints of old. And yet you'd say to yourself, they're ready due anyway to have a coming out party, hopefully not at the expense of Mike Pettine's defensive unit.
It's interesting. I watched the game against Oakland, and Brees does look like he's 41. He's definitely older than and slower than he was when he was 34, but he's still very good. And I would hesitate to make too many judgments on him without Chris Thomas and their very good defense. They have some ex-Packers. They have Jared Cook. And they also have Ty Montgomery, which you wonder where Ty Montgomery. Gutekunst traded him to Baltimore, and they cut him, and he ended up in New Orleans. And they also have Taysom Hill. The interesting thing about Taysom Hill, though, is I think they used him on over 60% of the plays in the playoffs toward the end of last year, as running back, as receiver, as part quarterback in the Wildcat. And this year they're using him less than 20%. One of the reasons, the speculation is that Teddy Bridgewater, the backup quarterback, has gone elsewhere. He's with Carolina now. So they're saying that they gave Hill a nice big contract, and I think they're using him less. They don't want to get him hurt. Because I remember Taysom Hill, the story with the Packers was he came in as the quarterback from BYU, and he was older because he blew his knee,
Right.
I think, a couple times. Some scouts told me that they liked him as a safety. He was that athletic, they would bring him in as a safety, not a quarterback. So unfortunately for the Packers, and I wonder after this the COVID roster rule changes where you can use IR and you can bring guys back and forth in the expanded roster up to 55 before cutting it down to 48 rather than 46. If those had been in place in 2017, Taysom Hill would have been still a Packer, I believe. They liked him a lot, and he reminded me of Don Majkowski in that he could scramble and he would scramble guys open. He would scramble to his left, and he put the linebackers on an island. Do I come up and try to tackle him because he's going to run for 10 yards, or do I stay back? And if they come up, he'd drop it right over their heads. He was really entertaining to watch, and I know they really liked him, but the Packers had a ton of offensive tackle issues in 2017 where 7 or 8 of them were played in. Lane Taylor played offensive tackle. Everybody was playing offensive tackle. Too many injuries, and they couldn't afford that third quarterback. But Taysom Hill, what an interesting player. He's kind of a throwback to the Harmon Wages of the 60s and 70s.
Harmon Wages drop. How good is that on the Pippen Dodds Packers podcast? Love it. JD, the point I was getting at earlier, so against Tampa Bay, they didn't get to the 300-yard mark for the first time in the regular season since 2019. But they do have Drew Brees, as you say, and he's a Hall of Famer, and you'd expect him to come back. And they've got Alvin Kamara, and that along with Latavius Murray. But Kamara in particular, one of the most productive running backs in his first 3 years in a long time in the league, historically good. So what does Mike Pettin do in terms of a strategy to try to keep him under wraps? Because I would think if they come out early and run that ball, it'd be like 49ers again, all over again, the couple of times they played them last year, especially in the NFC Championship game.
I think the only way to beat them is to outscore them. I don't think you're going to stop them. But their defense is quick, and they can put pressure on the passer. But I think the Raider game, and it's good that they had that game on Monday night. Hopefully they looked a little tired. They looked a little listless, I thought. They won't be listless on Sunday. This will be an important game. But when I look at the Saints, and if the Packers scout the Saints, they're probably thinking that, looking at New Orleans, that the Packers are looking in a mirror because they have the old quarterback, the old veteran quarterback who's unflappable. The Saints have the best part of their offense is Armstead, their offensive left tackle, and Pete, their left guard. So just like the Packers with Jenkins and Bakhtiari, the Saints are outstanding on the left side of their team. They have Jared Cook at tight end. Now, that's a definite upgrade over what the Packers have. And you know how important Jared Cook was at the end of the 2016 season, and that pass from Rodgers to Cook at the end of the Cowboy game was one of probably the top 5 amazing plays I've ever seen.
Couldn't agree more. Life. Oh, especially at the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But and then Kamara, the jack of all trades back who can catch, it's just like Aaron Jones. So you look at these teams and the other thing is their top defensive lineman is Marcus Davenport. He's the guy that New Orleans traded up with Gutekunst and then gave an extra number 1 pick, and Gutekunst dropped from, I think it was 14 to 27, and then they traded up for Alexander then after that with Seattle. But he's out, just like Kenny Clark could be out this week. So they probably have more active linebackers, and then their best cornerback is Lattimore, the really good corner, physical corner from Ohio State. He was about a 12th pick. Just an really good player. This should be just a very intriguing game this Sunday night.
He's the Packers historian, John Dodds. He is the Aaron Rodgers of the Pippen Dodds Packers podcast, sponsored by our good friend Don Matovich. and company out there at DJ's Goalpost in Menominee Falls. Don is always with us when he can be. He can't be today, but we wanted to come on and give you your Packers fix and look forward to reconnecting with him in some form in the Saints game. And you brought up, hey, 17, hey, he's got the hammy, talking about, of course, Devontae Adams, but Michael Thomas may not play for the Saints. So we have to see how that goes. Again, two premier receivers and super analogy, not only mirror images in terms of players and strengths and positions, but as it relates to injury.
Well, and the storylines for this game is, number one, you have the battle of the future Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Rodgers against Breeze. And then, as you said, Pip, which number one wide receiver is more banged up and who's more important to the team, Devontae Adams or Michael Thomas? So that's the interesting thing. If those guys can't play, who gets hurt more? And then you got the class of 2017, the running backs, Alvin Kamara. Kamara was a third-round pick, I believe, and Aaron Jones was a fifth-round pick. So they're kind of squaring off. And then you got the Zadarius Smith versus Cam Jones. Cam Jones is their main man, defensive lineman, puts pressure on the quarterback. You'd have to double him. And I'd be interested to see if they switch him over instead of going against Bakhtiari, if they switch him over to maybe over on the right side of the Packer offensive line. So it's really interesting. You have various storylines, but it seems to be a really interesting head-to-head matchup with the big advantage for the Packers, the quiet surroundings in New Orleans make Aaron Rodgers the coach on the field and maybe the most valuable player in the NFL, because he can do a lot of switching. Yeah, he can switch plays, he can switch pass pro, he can switch a lot of things at the line.
And he can induce defensive lines or defenses in general into penalties with a hard count, and he's brilliant at that. John, Traquan Smith, too, I think number 10, the wide receiver, he looked good to me against the Raiders, so he's a gifted guy, and there are certainly weapons in the Saints lineup, but you like the Packers' chances, especially if they get off to a quick start to get their first win in the Superdome. I don't know if they've won there since Super Bowl 31, have they? Or 31, I believe.
I believe, let's see, thinking quickly back, it doesn't come to me. It seems like Breeze was always lighting them up over the last few years. But that's a tough venue for Green Bay, no question. Yeah, I can't think of anything, but
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I had heard that somewhere, and I think that's the case. But we move forward. How do you see this game matching up? You think it's going to be a shootout? Is it first team to 40 or 50 wins, or as you said the other day, I think the first team that punts is going to lose this game? It's just been in this COVID year and training camp aborted, different. Unlike anything we've seen, no exhibition games. And, that's why Rodgers said, they're still working things out, especially the young guys in this offense and how much Matt LaFleur feeds them. But give me your analysis, pregame analysis on this. How's it going to shake out?
No, I think the Packers, you need to have ball control offense and slowly go down, have a 10-play drive. As we've said before, the Packer no huddle offense is not designed to run more plays. It's designed for ball control and to maximize Aaron Rodgers' value. So keep the other team from subbing. Aaron Rodgers can come out, dictate the matchups. And if you slowly control the ball, the other team gets fatigued. So go all the way down. And I think the Packers do have so far the offense that is patient enough for the ball control all the way down, and they haven't had an interception or a fumble. They've kept mistakes at a minimum. So I think that's the way to go. New Orleans is going to score and score and score. So it's, can you generate a turnover? And so it all comes down to maybe some pass rush every now and then. Can you force Breeze into a mistake? He's not as mobile as Rodgers. And then can you control the ball? Those are my things. Those are my feelings in the first 1 to 45 wins.
See, you're flawless. You got it broken down. I can't wait. It is a litmus test for the Packers, as you point out. The Vikings are the Vikings, but they've had their challenges, and we know Detroit the same. So this is a game right here. If you can come out of there 3-0, then you're starting to do. They were asking Aaron Rodgers about the identity of the team and the offense. He says, "Hey, it's 2 games. It's too small a sample size." But you can't do any better than they've done to this point. I still have my concerns about this defense. I think that will be what will hold them back from getting to another Super Bowl unless they can tighten it up.
The ideal thing for the Packers, and this is kind of like the fantasy, what could happen to change the Packers season? In 2002, the Packers were 3-3, and the New Orleans Saints cut Grady Jackson. And the Packers picked him up, and he was their best defensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
He stuffed the run. That's what they need. If they could do something to pick up a big that could stuff the run a little bit, even 15 plays a game. You don't have to have it 40 plays, because Rodgers gets you ahead. But if you can do that, because the real weakness of the Packers seems to be that Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, they're good blitzers, but you can run on them. You can trap them. You can seal them on the run. But boy, they're such good pass rushers that covers up a lot of mistakes. Here's a tidbit for you, Pip. One of the things that you want the Packers to do is at the opening coin flip is you want them to win and to defer, because when they try to do that, because what they want to do is they want to call what's double dip. They're calling it double dip. They want to have the ball at the end of the first half and maybe score a field goal or a touchdown, and then they know that they can run the clock down before they do it, and they're going to get the opening kickoff of the third quarter. So they're going to get the ball back.
Mm-hmm.
I know Aaron Jones was talking about that post game. He was calling it sandwiching. You're sandwiching around halftime with 2 possessions. And the Packers, there's a stat that since 2011, the Packers have had 15 double dips where they've scored at the end of the second quarter and the beginning of the third quarter, and they're 13-2 in those games. So it's good, win that toss and elect to defer.
Yeah, I like that normally. I don't know, for some reason, the way they're moving the ball and with the defensive struggles in New Orleans, it's like, okay, Lions got up 7-0 right away. And I say, you know what? Win the toss, go down Packers and score, somehow find a way to do the sandwich at the end of the second. But then, as you say, you're not going to get that ball to open the third quarter. And maybe if you look at it in the end, it's a better strategy to do as you're proposing. Yeah, that stat is true that somebody had said it on the telecast, I think, of the Raiders, forgive me, and the Saints, that Packers' last win in the Superdome was Super Bowl 31, 1997, over the New England Patriots. Okay, so how do you see it shaping out in terms of score? You want to go out on the record? Is this going to be a tight game? It certainly sounds, in your opinion, as if it's going to be high scoring, and I always follow your lead.
I think the Packers are going to lose this game 45-37. I just think that it's too tough. New Orleans has to win this game. If Green Bay wins, then it's a race against Seattle probably. San Francisco has taken a couple steps down with some horrible injuries last week. They have a bunch of guys hurt, but they're thinking it might be the turf on their football field, their home football field. Green Bay plays on that turf in about 6 weeks, so I hope they get it straightened out if it's the turf. But I think probably Seattle is the number 1 team in the conference.
But Russell Wilson looks great, doesn't he?
He looks terrific. And Green Bay second, with probably New Orleans in that group. And New Orleans is going to really come after them. If Green Bay can win this game, it'll be very impressive. I just don't see it. I had the Packers 11-5 this year, and one of the losses was at New Orleans.
Okay. I want to, because I'm glad you brought it up, Nick Bosa out for the season for the 49ers. Solomon Thomas is hurt. Garoppolo has the high ankle sprain. The running back, Raheem Mostert, Well, all he did was gash the Pack for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns in that NFC Championship tilt that was so frustrating. So you don't like to see these kinds of things happen, but that really does cripple the 49ers at least to this point. So Seattle, you would think, might be the team. You know, JD, I'm going to go out on a limb and respectfully disagree. I think they're going to win because I don't think the Saints are the Saints of old in terms of the offense. So now watch them go out and blitz it, and then I'll eat a little humble pie, but that's all right. The good Lord has helped me with eat a lot of that in recent times, both on and off the field, as they say. Uh, Snacks Harrison, talking about humble pie and food. This kid's pretty good. He's still a free agent. Why might the Pack? They've been linked to talks with him. Is it a money issue? As you say, if they could just get another run stuffer to help out Kenny Clark, a healthy Clark, it would make such a difference. And it would make the Smiths that much more effective, along with an emerging Rashawn Gary in his second season.
Well, it's the Gilbert Brown type. It seemed, well, the Gilbert Brown type was the type you want to stuff the run. Snacks Harrison stuffs the run. When I've always been a believer in having big defensive tackles. And Dom Capers, when he had his great team in 2010, he had just huge guys: B.J. Raji, Jenkins, Pickett, Green. Those guys were the big. They'd use 3 of them at a time, sometimes 2 of them at a time. There's been some thought that the NFL has changed, that when you play against teams like the Green Bay Packers that are always moving the ball with the quarterback running it, running up to the line, you can't always get your big guy off the field and get him back on the field again. So the defensive tackles have gotten smaller a little bit in recent years. And so that's where a Kenny Clark is extremely valuable. He's a bigger guy who can move like a smaller guy, and he can stuff the run. And so that's why I think Snacks Harrison might not be the perfect fit, but he sure would be on maybe 2-point conversions or 4th and 1. Put him in there and at least hold the line and allow people to make tackles. So I think that might be it, but it all probably comes down to money.
Yep.
And they need to sign Aaron Jones and Bakhtiari.
Yeah, you said it before. Yeah, you're our capologist on the Pip and Dodds Packers podcast. And you're back to Kenny Clark. Everyone's aware he's got the contract to prove it. That's how good he is. So you do need him back on the field. Hopefully he can find a way to get back in for New Orleans. And Devontae Adams, well, enough said about him. He's certainly central to the offense. What a combination, what a rhythm that he has going with Aaron Rodgers. John, before we sign off, we would be remiss if we didn't bring up something you brought to my attention the other day, and that is the NFL has lost one of its greatest players ever, and certainly a marvelous ambassador, a fine human being.
Neil Sears passed away this week after suffering from dementia in recent years. All those big hits that he took in those years. What's unfortunate, well, I was lucky when I was 5 and 6 years old when I started watching NFL football. Neil Sears came into fore, and he was on the field. And for my money, my mind, he's the greatest player ever in NFL history. Nobody could cut in the open field. Nobody could sprint like that. He could take kickoffs, punts. He could catch the ball, run the ball. And the Packers would have 5 Hall of Famers on their team: Ray Nitschke, Dave Robinson, Willie Davis, Henry Jordan, Willie Wood, Herb Adderley. That's 6 Hall of Famers. And the Bears would come up to Lambeau, and he could go for 200 yards on them. Mm-hmm. And they would just be freaked out about it. So there's never been someone quite like that. He was immortalized in Brian's song with his relationship with Brian Piccolo at the time. Mm-hmm. But it's just
wonderful story.
Kermit Alexander just happened to hit him when he was cutting, and he blew 2 ligaments. And I don't even want to know what type of surgical procedures there were in 1967.
Yeah, what he could have been, huh? What he could have been, as great as he was. I remember watching him, John, as a youngster when he played at Kansas, I believe, the Kansas Comet. He'd come into Syracuse growing up there, as I did, old Archbold Stadium, and it was a treat. So, again, thank you for doing that, because he was not only a fabulous player for the Chicago Bears and the entire league, but but a first-class guy. Any final thoughts from you before we take it home on this particular edition of the podcast?
Sure. My wife Sheila is from Chicago, and she's from a family of 7. A lot of people down there were Bears fans. And when old JD was first introduced to the family, one of the uncles said to me, "All right, I'm a Bears fan. You're a Packer fan, right? Who's the greatest football player you've ever seen?" And I said, "Gale Sayers, hands down." And I got so much credibility in that family ever since. I think they welcomed me with open arms. So that was a key.
Your vast Packers knowledge, John, has paid dividends from day one. It's a joy to be with you always, friend, on the Pip and Dodds Packers podcast. We look forward to doing it again. We're going to be streaming on Sunday from our WSS studios. Thanks to Jason Ruck and Facebook and Twitter, and hope you'll take advantage of that. And when you can, go out to DJ's Goalpost in a normal situation. We're there during the week when we record with our good friend Don Matovich, who is part of that. We offer thoughts and prayers to Don and his family going through a challenging time right now with his nephew not well. But it is really fun to be together again, and we look forward to the next one. And get out to DJ's Goalpost. I heard somebody else tell me today, just aside from our little group here, yeah, I haven't been to DJ's in years. I think a neighbor of mine, but the hamburger and the fries are awesome. I said, I think John Dodds would agree.
Absolutely. Best in town.
You bet. That's a great place to stop right there. Take care, everybody. God bless. We'll see you next time. Thank you for your company as well. Go Pack against the Saints. We'll see you Sunday night.